Within the lowest form of creation, respectively the lowest universe, in which an exclusive material matter belt and also material lifeforms exist, there are still many other dimensions present, which form in and for themselves in the direct inner area of the Dern universe, respectively of the creation, as other dimension spaces, respectively universes, but also belong to the direct outer creation, respectively the main area of the Dern universe, respectively of the Dern creation parable. A big glass sphere can serve as comparison, however, for this example. It must be understood that in this invisible form, there are still many, however invisible for the eye in all senses, other glass spheres that exist. These form, so to speak, further spacetime dimensions, which therefore exist in the same size in the main sphere, as this is in reality the case with the Dern universe, respectively the Dern creation, which holds many other differently dimensioned space, time structures, respectively other dimensions, or other universes in itself. All universes, respectively creations, in infinite number in the most different 1049 evolutionary stages have to evolve, namely in the way that they have to go through all 1049 different evolutionary levels. So must also the Dern creation, respectively the Dern universe, which accommodates the terrestrial mankind in the Sol system, which also has to evolve further until it changes into a higher form of evolution. The first higher advanced development takes place as state of a primordial creation, and in the last 1049th consequence it integrates over into the absolute's absolute. In this sphere, the creation universe has to go through 6 further evolution levels in order to then integrate into the next higher absolute form, namely into the primordial absolute, which also consists, like all absolute forms in general, of 7 evolution levels in which all former creation universes have to evolve through before they can integrate into the being absolute. And from the first, respectively lowest universe creation form, there are 1049 different evolutionary levels to be evolved through before an integration back into the absolute's absolute takes place. In endless timeless duration, the very first lowest creations, just as the Dern universe form is one, came into being through the absolute's absolute, as also countless new creation universes through primordial universes, respectively primordial creations, to which 1049 different evolution stages are given. Through these steps or evolutionary levels, these creation universes have to develop in each case to the highest and finest evolution. Since the first initial 49-fold creation of first, respectively first lowest creation universes, which exist in the 1049 different evolution levels, there are now an infinite number of creations, respectively universes, which are still developing higher. And all these 1049 forms of creation, respectively universes in infinite number, will one day integrate again into the absolute's absolute, in which the development, respectively evolution, continues, namely up to the next absolute form, the primordial absolute, and then after an additional evolution again, evolving further and further, until all absolute forms with the respective 7 levels have been passed through, and then finally an integration into the being absolute takes place. This also has 7 evolutionary levels, whereby then, in its last level, the last evolution process of the still higher evolving creation universe form takes place. And if then the last highest possible evolutionary form, and with it the same evolutionary state is reached, which the being absolute also has contains, then a fusion with the being absolute takes place, which develops endlessly into all infinite, timeless duration. SSSC 18, November 2016, 0.24H Billy. The evolutionary way of every lowest creation, like the form of the Dern universe, up to the emergence as a primordial universe creation, lasts from the first existential stage in multiple divisions up to the first development stage as primordial creation for about 85 trillion Earth years. With a Big Bang, the existence and the development of each of the 1049 different further evolving creation universes begins, so therefore beginning with the very first initial 49 lings, which have emerged in infinite, timeless duration from the absolute's absolute as the first creations as lowest creation universal consciousness universes, and have developed further since then. So it is also said that with it, all first, respectively first lowest creation universes, which were created since endless timeless duration, basically emerged, and emerge only from the absolute's absolute or from a primordial creation universe. After the Big Bang, a unique pre-birth phase and a slumber phase, respectively a resting and active state takes place, after which a waking period in active form, and after that, a slumber period in active form takes place. The pre-birth phase means the first expansion of the creation universe, which is immediately followed by the first evolutionary step, which leads to the first waking period. This means that the creation universe has spread so far by the outermost explosion wave that all 7 explosion wave belts exist. The first Big Bang hearth belt and the second inner belt are of a purely neutral spirit energy nature, while the third inner belt has a purely spirit energy positive form. The fourth belt is again purely neutral spirit energy, while the fifth belt has a purely negative spirit energy polarity. The outer two belts, the sixth and seventh, correspond again to purely neutral spirit energy, whereby at the same time, the seventh belt forms the ram belt or displacement belt. Through the third and fifth belts, it also follows that these act as positive and negative spirit energy, respectively, on the fourth purely spirit energy belt located between them, whereby through this positive-negative influence, first gaseous and flocculent substances are formed, which then condense in their primordial substance and finally become matter. To want to describe the whole spirit energy physical development would be probably useless, because about this no explanations and data are given. Consequently, already a vague explanation attempt would be hopeless. See Genesis Figu. The first waking period of a lowest creation universe, such as the Dern universe, lasts altogether for a great time GZ, which covers 311 trillion and 40 billion years respectively. 311, 04 1012 years, where this total time covers 155, 5 trillion years of expansion and 155, 5 trillion years of contraction. Therefore, this period corresponds to the lifespan of a lowest respectively first lowest universe, if it is created by the absolute or by a primordial creation universe through a Big Bang. If the end of the expansion phase takes place after 155.5 trillion years, and thereby during further 155.5 trillion years the fallback respectively the contraction phase, then the entire creation universe comprising 7 belts changes back into pure spirit energy, whereby also the fourth belt, the material matter belt, dissolves again into pure spirit energy. Altogether the entire spirit energy mass falls back, compressing into the primordial hearth belt or the core, in order to evolve energetically further in itself, whereby a compression takes place, which increases up to an energetic monstrosity and explodes after about 85 trillion Earth years by a Big Bang, from which the first phase of the primordial creation universe emerges from it. At the end of a waking period, the creation lies down in an evolutionary slumber respectively in an outwardly inactive, but inwardly further evolving phase during which it further processes respectively develops respectively evolves all positive values. That means all spirit energy impulses. This process is explained in the spiritual teaching for the understanding of the people of the earth as processing and expanding knowledge to wisdom and love, etc. However, it is about the fact that the spirit energies stored and created anew during the waking period are further developed to the highest possible form, up to the Big Bang respectively, to the transition into the next higher evolutionary stage respectively into the state of a primordial creation universe. Within approximately 85 trillion Earth years, every first creation develops with a waking and a slumbering period, each in 7 steps of evolution toward the primordial creation. Each period thereby extends itself by the sevenfold. With all evolutionary steps, it is always about the same creational process, which lies down after every waking period again in an evolutionary slumber respectively in an outwardly inactive state and transforms itself inwardly again into pure creation energy. That means that the contracted creation universe expands itself in spirit energy form respectively, develops itself spirit energy out of itself, and at the same time enormously condenses, whereby finally again an overpressure occurs, and through this a new Big Bang emerges, as well as a new creation universe form. With regard to the becoming of a primordial creation, a so-called transition period is initiated at the end of the 7 steps of the first evolutionary stage. This is necessary for the completion of the transformation of the creation into a primordial creation, and lasts 7 great times equals 2177, 28 1012 years. The total lifespan of each first lowest creation universe is 7 steps, and about 85 trillion Earth years, more precisely 85, 387011184, 1018 years. The reason why the lifespan of a creation increases 7-fold from one waking period to the next is because from waking period to waking period more time is needed to transform the acquired spirit energy impulses and values into finer and finer spirit energy vibrations. Parable. The human being on earth may serve as an example that the same system applies to him. How could it be otherwise, since it is conditioned by natural law? If a human, for example, acquires the knowledge and the practice of metal welding, and thus learns this, then he needs approximately a time of 3 months. If however a higher profession is taken up, which requires more knowledge and ability, then the requirements become greater and more stringent, whereby the learning of the profession then also becomes correspondingly more laborious and more extensive as well as more time-intensive, whereby the time required for learning automatically increases and gains in scope. Thus, the apprenticeship of a car mechanic already lasts 2 years, then the even higher profession of a mechanic takes 3 years, and that of an even higher profession of an electronics engineer 4 years, and that of a doctor 7 years, etc., etc. The subsequent stages in the further development of the first lowest creation universes up to the being absolute first takes place through 1049 higher levels of development, respectively evolutionary changes into higher universe forms, whereby it is to be explained correctly that thereby from the stage of the primordial universe, the term creation is actually still just as relevant, as also in the case of the absolute forms. And this is so because the higher universe and absolute forms create new universes over and over again, whereby, however, only the absolute's absolute and the primordial creation universes create new first lowest creation universes. This, while all other absolute forms and universe forms can only be referred to as evolutionary pass-through levels, through which the individual universes evolve higher and, as the next higher universe form, also continue to exist in evolution, evolving, etc. However, it is to be understood that already before the first time of the sevenfold passing away and becoming again of the first lowest creation universes, these show a material mattering as the fourth belt, which forms the visible material part of a whole creation universe. So in first lowest creation universes, the fourth belt only exists as material matter belt in the first effectively active existence phase or the active state of the waking phase. This shows the property of an increasing escape velocity. Consequently, the material matter belt extends and expands more and more, according to which all galaxies drift further and further apart, namely up to the time of the contraction or the fallback of creation universes. Another peculiar ability inherent to creation universes is that the visible material belts of each universe are repeatedly, continuously, and seamlessly arranged in a renewal every 49 billion Earth years. After the unique 311 trillion and 40 billion years of lasting existence of every creation universe, a primordial creation universe forms from it, whereby in this from now on, as also in all its further 1049 times subsequent and higher evolving universe forms, no further material matter belt forms. All evolving and always higher developing first lowest creation universes continue to evolve, after their passing away as primordial universes, respectively primordial creations, because from the time of the final passing away, they change into the form of a primordial creation universe. If these creation universe forms have then also reached their highest state of evolution, then they change into the next higher form, to the central creation universe, then further and further up to the highest possible level of evolution, through which the integration into the absolute's absolute is made possible, beyond the actual creation universe evolution structure, in relation to the development of all creation universes in 1049 shifting levels, in which they evolve higher and higher, and finally integrate in the highest state of evolution into the absolute absolute. Then follows a further development, as already explained, the evolutionary course through all 7 absolute forms, in order to then, after reaching the highest possible development potential, merge with this one absolute form, the being absolute, and from then on, exists in infinite timeless duration, unstoppably evolving higher and higher with this absolute form, and continues existing endlessly. Each further development of a creation universe within the framework of the 1049 development, respectively evolutionary levels, always takes place in 7 steps, namely always with a waking and slumbering period, respectively an external active state and an external inactive state, in which, however, an evolutionary activity still prevails in the inner area. With this inner activity, a self-creating self-multiplication of the spirit energy mass takes place in the outward resting. However, the inwardly active creation universe, at the same time, also produces a compression of the same value, whereby the spirit energy increases, and after the Big Bang in the next respective outer active phase, or wake phase, always comes into the validity based around the sevenfold. In the first active, respectively, waking period, and only in this one, as a primordial creation universe, an impulse for understanding called idea creates respectively arises by the new high carat spirit energy for the creation of a new creation universe, or to create multiple universes, up to 49 creation universes of lowest form, that are always provided with a 4th material universe belt. The idea mentioned for the clarification is therefore on the one hand in reality an impulse, whereby on the other hand one or several new creation universes come out of this idea, which must then develop themselves in themselves to finally become the primordial creation universe, and go through the developmental steps of the 1049-fold further evolutionary levels to finally integrate into the absolute's absolute. The maximum limit for the creation of a maximum of 49 lings in relation to the creation of creation universes is given by the being absolute, consequently resulting due to a corresponding being absolute impulse, which is entered into the absolute's absolute and is transferred into all primordial creation universes, that by the absolute's absolute, as well as by primordial creation universes, both a single creation universe or 2 or 3, but up to a maximum of 49 first lowest creation universes can be created. This is despite the fact that the absolute's absolute can again and again create new first lowest creation universes during a great time, which covers 311 trillion and 40 billion years, whereby their respective number of creation universes, from 1 up to 49, is determined in each case by processed respectively specially accumulated spirit energy mass. In contrast to the absolute's absolute, every primordial creation universe is able to carry out a building, act or a creation of a first lowest creation universe, or several creation universes only once. According to the information given from the pure spirit level Arahant Atharsita, the number of simple respectively lowest creation universes, which can emerge from a primordial creation universe, is very much smaller compared to the absolute's absolute. The reason for this arises as exactly the same as with the absolute's absolute, namely according to the energy potential of the corresponding primordial creation universe. So it is theoretically possible for both the absolute's absolute and every primordial creation universe to be able to create powerful impulses for 1, 2, 3, or up to 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, or 49 creation universes of lowest form. And for this, it must still be explained that with the creation of lowest creation universes by the absolute's absolute, and by the primordial creation universes, a number of 1 to 7 first lowest creation universes are possible. But beyond this number, then only 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, or 49 per creation. As a result, multiple creations from the first 7 creations onwards are only made in such a way that, according to Patel, no more intermediate creations can take place, but only 7 respectively, further 7, and then again 7 in increments of 14, 21, 28, 35, 42 to 49. Creation universes of the first lowest form also are unable to create themselves. Same with those which develop in the 1049 evolutionary stages, because all of them are arranged in the framework of the creative natural laws which are given by the being absolute and are formed in such a way that a form, whichever kind it is, cannot become active or alive out of itself, but that a default factor must always be given from which something can form arise from. Parable: a material form of life needs a positive and negative factor respectively, e.g., with the human being, a mother who can bear offspring, as also a father who carries out a mating with the mother so that a fruit develops in her which can grow up, prosper, and be born. Similarly differently same-purpose processes arise in the whole material nature, and its fauna and flora, according to transmissions of the highest pure spirit level Patel. Everything emerged in the material realm equally as it is also in the spirit energetic terms, whereby in this respect, especially the absolute nothing respectively, nothing vacuum is to be observed, in which a yocto fine original ancient primordial primal primeval great grand spirit energetic fluid developed. This merged into a two-pole impulse and formed into a very first yocto fine spirit energy impulse, which had the ability to expand itself into a gigantic very finest original ancient primordial primal primeval great grand spirit energy mass. This then condensed into an enormous compression and ultimately led to the first and unique nothing vacuum Big Bang, through which a new energetic and powerful impulse arose, which formed itself spirit energetically into self-development, and at the same time, stimulated a self-ability to create a self-existence. Using this nothing vacuum spirit energy mass, which developed out of the nothing vacuum, and became free, a further new, and much more enormous, mightier, and more powerful spirit energy formed itself out of it, which, through expanding, increasing, and ennobling itself in itself, made itself to an exorbitant respectively colossal, immeasurable, endless timeless spirit energy construct, namely into the being absolute. So this developed from the energy of the nothing vacuum, Big Bang itself, to become an endless timeless independent, and all-embracing all highest absolute form, and created 6 completely independent absolute forms. The last created absolute form, the absolute's absolute, was then able to bring forth the first 49 creation universes, which evolved into primordial creation universes, which in turn became uniquely capable of creating new first lowest creation universes in order to then evolve themselves further up through 1049 stages of development, in order to one day reintegrate themselves into the absolute's absolute, in the absolute origin of all existence, the absolute nothing respectively, the absolute vacuum respectively. Nothing vacuum was given. The being absolute had not developed out of nothing, but it developed out of a yocto tiny, bipolar original ancient primordial primal primeval great grand fine spirit energetic fluidal impulse in infinite, endless duration in itself, then developed the ability of creation, and out of it, the being absolute created itself. This in turn created 6 subsequent absolute forms, the last form of which has the ability to create first lowest creation universes, which constantly evolve in a 1049-fold manner and higher, and further developments in order to finally merge with the being absolute. The first lowest creation universes are called this phrase in such a manner because they are created out of the absolute's absolute or out of a primordial creation universe as lowest creation universes, which are given as first creation universe forms with the 1049 further evolutionary development phases to be passed through. Why the creation universes are called this way throughout all evolution respectively development stages is based on the fact that they have to develop themselves in continuous sequence creatively respectively self-constructively until they one day become one in endless and timeless duration with the being absolute through a fusion. The further stages of the evolutionary development of the first lowest creation universes up to the being absolute first takes place through 1049 higher levels of development respectively evolutionary changes into higher universe forms, whereby it is to be explained correctly that thereby from the stage of the primordial universe, the term creation is actually still just as relevant as also in the case of the absolute forms. And this is so because the higher universe forms and the absolute forms produce, again and again, new universes respectively. Create new universes, however, only the absolute's absolute and the primordial creation universes can create new first lowest creation universes. This, while all other absolute forms and universe forms can be called only as evolution pass-through levels, through which it happens that the individual universes evolve higher, and also continue to evolve as the next higher universe form, etc. However, it is to be understood that already before the first time of the sevenfold passing away, and becoming again of the first lowest creation universes, these universes show a material mattering as the fourth belt, which forms the visible material part of a whole creation universe. So in first lowest creation universes the fourth belt exists as material matter belt only in the first effectively active existence phase or the active state of the waking phase. This shows the property of an increasing escape velocity, consequently the material matter belt extends and expands more and more, according to which all galaxies drift further and further apart, namely up to the time of the contraction or the fall back of the creation universes. Another ability that is inherent in creation universes is that the visible belts of material matter are seamlessly integrated into a renewal in such a way without transition. After the unique 311 trillion and 40 billion years of lasting existence of every creation universe, a primordial creation universe forms from it, whereby from now on in this, as also in all its further 1049 times of subsequent and higher universal evolutions, no further material matter belt forms. All evolution and always higher developing first lowest creation universes continue evolution as primordial universes respectively primordial creations, because from the time of the final passing away of the first lowest creation universe, they change into the form of the primordial creation universe. If then these creation universe forms have also reached their highest state of evolution, then they change to the next higher form, to the central creation universe, and after that, always evolving further up to the very highest possible state of evolution, by which the integration into the absolute's absolute is made possible. Beyond the actual creation universe evolution structure in relation to the development of all creation universes in 1049 different levels, in which they evolve higher and higher and finally integrate in the highest state of evolution into the absolute's absolute, it then follows as further development, as already explained. They go through the evolutionary course through all 7 absolute forms, in order to then, after reaching the highest possible development potential in the being absolute, merge with it, and from then on in infinite, timeless duration to evolve unstoppably higher and higher with it and to continue to exist endlessly. However, as far as the 1049 development stages are concerned which go through or evolve through the first lowest creation universes, it is to be explained that through the impulse law of the being absolute, the continuous temporal form of the development stages always extends itself by the sevenfold, as this is represented in the table evolutionary path of the primordial creation to the central creation made by Guido Moosbrugger, page 300. In addition, this table also further shows that the primordial creation universe also develops in 7 stages of development to the next higher form of creation, namely to the central creation universe, and has to continue to evolve. This second stage of development takes around 70 quadrillion years, 70.318.082.800.804608 1024 years. Also, the durations of all 1049 further levels, which are to be passed through the creation universes in an evolutionary manner, respectively are to be evolved, increase in sevenfold form. Every creation universe of first lowest form is unique, because as respective first creation, each one shows a coarse material matter belt in the fourth inner ring, which is understood and perceived by Earth mankind as the material universe. However, while the creation universe consists altogether of 7 belts, the 3 inner and 3 outer belts remain invisible to terrestrial mankind, because they exist as pure invisible spirit energy outside of the material matter belt. All universal objects are located in the material matter belt itself, i.e. all galaxies up to the hypergalaxies, all stars respectively suns, as well as all planets, moons, comets, asteroids, meteors, and nebulae. This also includes all forms of life of all genera and species that developed on planets and moons suitable for them, and will continue to develop in the future. The existence and life of all forms of life, from the very tiniest to the very largest living being in the material fourth belt, the visible part of the universe, also includes the spirit forms that are created by a yocto, tiniest or quadrillionth of a millimeter of the tiniest fluidal spirit energy. All these forms of spirit energy each correspond to a yocto tiniest spirit energy fluid, which comes from the universal creative spirit energy itself, and which remains connected to the spirit form for an endless and timeless duration.